Thank you, everyone, for attending today, or if you're watching later, thank you for watching this presentation. Very excited to have Ms. Jennifer Hull, the University Relations Partner from Electrolux, here today to talk about tips and best practices for virtual and video interviews. So, Jennifer, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jay, and thank you so much for everyone who has joined the call. I know that this is a little bit different than what we've done in the past, and I think we're hopefully getting more into a rhythm of our new normal. So as Jay said, I am Jennifer Hull. I am the University Relations Program Partner for Electrolux. So in my role, I oversee our internship and co-op program. And I've been on campus a few times this semester to help recruit for our internships and some co-ops that we have that I can talk about later as well. But when COVID-19 hit and learning that colleges definitely closed first of getting students home and getting everybody safely and moving everything to a virtual learning scenario, I had reached out to Jay just to say, hey, can I help? I want to make sure students feel prepared when it comes time to interview for positions, either for a full-time job or internships that may still occur for the summer or even the fall time. So this is kind of where this idea sprouted from. So thank you so much for joining me today, and feel free to type in questions. I believe Jay's recording those, and we'll get to them at the end. Or if there's something urgent that you want to kind of interrupt, that's fine too. So here's kind of the agenda for the day. Let's see if I can do my technology. Perfect. Just kind of wanting to do a welcome to the workshop, and then also we'll kind of talk about preparing for your virtual interview, and then what to actually do during the interview time frame, and then the follow-up. So I really think of it as three parts of getting ready for your interview, the actual interview, and then following up and how to set yourself apart. So before we kind of dive into the preparing for your virtual interview, I feel like you all may be becoming pros at this virtual online scenario already. And I think businesses will definitely be more in depth of being more comfortable in this space now. There's definitely companies that were already doing either video interviews before or doing a virtual interview where you would answer a set of questions and record them and then send them to the recruiter. And I think this crisis will definitely speed up that process a little bit more for other companies to jump on board now that they can see that their whole business can work remotely. And that we can save maybe some dollars on doing some of that pre-screening before we bring candidates on site. So I think you're going to see more and more companies do this. And I think if you become more familiar with it, it will definitely set you apart. So I hope my tips today can help with that. I also hope I can spread some good news in terms of I graduated 2 years after 9/11. So the economy was not great when I graduated from college. And then 5 years into my career, I saw the Great Recession. So I saw many friends who lost their jobs or had pay cuts, just like we're seeing now. But the conversations that I'm having with my colleagues at different organizations as well, as quickly as this kind of came about and disrupted everything, they're hoping that it can kind of function to normal again and move quickly again. So hopefully this hiring freezes that we're seeing or people being laid off will really truly be a short-term situation and not long-term. So I hope that brings some confidence and comfort to you that companies and businesses are talking about how do we hire people hopefully by July or August, when hopefully this has died down to enough where people feel comfortable doing interviews in person, wanting to travel, visit locations. Because I know from Electrolux's point of view, we are viewing the candidate experience right now. And we understand that candidates might not feel comfortable going on site to interview, which they can't at many of our locations. They can at our manufacturing plants, but you might not feel comfortable doing that just yet. Or that if you're trying to relocate, obviously can't move right now, or you just might not feel comfortable taking that leap of faith of accepting a new position right now. So they understand that and recognize it, and definitely want to make sure you feel good about coming on board and feeling confident about your position. And so they're thinking about how do we get there when we get there. But I think a lot of this will be on a virtual standpoint for now. So I hope that kind of helps in terms of just feeling a little bit better about the situation, that they do see the light, hopefully at the end of the tunnel. All right. So moving straight into preparing for your virtual interview, um, a lot of it is just that technology prep up front and making sure that you have that space ready to go. So, some background too, I used to work at Queen's University of Charlotte, so definitely talking to students on how to prepare for their interviews and really making sure that your space is appropriate for it. I actually took a screenshot of what my uh, home office looks like right now, and I do. I have the computer propped up on my high school and college yearbooks, so hopefully it can look a little bit more like I'm speaking to you at eye level. And also I put it in front of our window just to have more natural light. I have the lamp on. So just kind of getting your space ready showcases more of a professional feel for it as well. The background of my wall is definitely that picture that you can kind of see. And so if you're in a dorm room, an apartment, definitely trying to find that quiet space that you won't be distracted. You don't have something embarrassing on the background of your walls. So really just making sure that the space looks appropriate, just like it would if you were going on site and interviewing and going into a conference room. So really just trying to find that quiet space that lends itself well to be able to focus, pay attention, and having that light really makes you be able to see the person speaking to you, and they can visualize you too, so you guys can really see the nonverbals with one another. Also, just the technology standpoint. So you might obviously might be familiar with getting this done and taken care of either through WebEx that we logged on today, Zoom, even FaceTime. I know employers are using some of it too. At Electrolux, we use Blue Jeans. So I always like to tell candidates to download any sort of app. So click on the link beforehand to test that technology, to make sure you have it so you're not having to download anything 5-10 minutes before the interview time frame, making sure your audio works, making sure your video works, because that's the worst thing, to feel pressured when you're already stressed out about the interview that your technology is not working. So always just making sure you're still testing everything and making sure it works prior to the interview. So just to kind of recap on like the overview for preparing for your virtual interview. So setting up that space, like I said, just designating a quiet area. I know at Queens you could reserve conference rooms or rooms in the Career Center. I'm sure UNCC has something similar to that, where if you didn't feel comfortable doing it in your dorm room or when we're back on campus, being able to find a quiet space and just having zero distractions or little distractions on the walls, just because employers or interviewers are people and they're going to notice those things and kind of pinpoint it, and you don't want them to be distracted on what's behind you. They want to be focusing really what's coming out of your mouth. What are the examples that you're providing? And the lighting makes a huge difference. I know that can be harder sometimes to control, but if you are able to put up more light, it just helps kind of have more of the ambiance and a personal, friendlier feel when they can actually see your face. And then definitely pop up your computer so the video is at eye level. Looks like you're having more of a conversation. I know sometimes it's easy to focus on our own picture or the video that we're portraying on the screen, but if you can really look into the camera, then that's what they're seeing as well. Like I said, just check the technology connection, making sure you're clicking on any of the links prior to the interview to make sure that they work and that you don't have to download anything. And then just testing the volume to make sure that they can hear you and you can hear them. And just like any other interview, you still want to dress professionally. I know there's a lot of memes out there right now of what people are wearing at home on their conference calls. Our team, we do a virtual coffee every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we're definitely chill and relax in those. But I've definitely seen us step up our game when it comes to conference calls with our VP or other hiring managers. And even today, not sure if you can see it, but I wanted to wear a jacket, get dressed, look professional, feel good, even though I'm sitting at my home and I have my slippers on, my kids are upstairs. I want to still make sure I'm giving the best impression. And that, again, the hiring manager is not focused on what I'm wearing and questioning my judgment on what I'm wearing, but also really focusing on the words, because you don't want them to make a decision on a first impression that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the job. You still want to look the part, look good, and feel good. All right. So for your virtual interviews, it's really similar to what you would do to actually answer in an in-person interview. And you can definitely go in two ways. And I titled it virtual interviews just for thinking about it as truly Blue Jeans, WebEx, Zoom meeting, something that you're doing live, and also something that you could be doing from a recording standpoint. So I know many companies like a Wells Fargo, Deloitte, and Premier sometimes will have candidates do a set of recordings of answering the questions. So the recruiter would send you a list of questions, and then you have so many hours to submit your questions. But also you have to keep in mind, sometimes they're timing you on those questions too. And so you want to practice beforehand so you're ready to give those answers when you hit like record. So just kind of a FYI on those types of things. But what the employers are really looking for, and Electrolux included in this, is we're really looking for that star answer for the behavior types of questions. So at Electrolux, we actually call it hire for potential. So we are looking for candidates that have those technical skills, maybe some of that experience that we're looking for in the job, but we're really looking for a candidate that will be coachable, who has those communication skills, teamwork skills, problem solving skills. And so the questions that we provide our managers to ask in an interview are all these behavior-based questions to kind of understand what patterns and behaviors have you done in the past that might showcase what you'll do here at Electrolux or in the future. And the best way to answer these are through that STAR method. I'm guessing you probably have heard of these before, but just kind of wanted to walk you through what each one is so you really understand kind of like what we're really looking for. Let me get my examples. So the first one is really understanding that situation and understanding kind of what, giving that example of what the problem was. So for example, if you are applying for a marketing entry-level position, like as a marketing coordinator or a business analyst, you really want to tie and showcase your examples to the actual role. So it's really important to tailor it back to the position. So any kind of example, you're going to have to give them the framework of what the situation was so they understand the problem. And then what was your task that you did to solve that problem? And that really ties in well with the action. What we have seen candidates not do so well in all the time is that results. And the results part is really the key thing that kind of wins the manager over, of you understanding either what was the end result for the result of kind of that marketing strategy that you put together, or what was the budget savings that you did, or was it an A+ on a project that you did? So tying in examples from your school, from your classes, from leadership opportunities, all can go through this whole process and be tied to those examples. And what I mentioned about what employers are really looking for is they're looking for those problem solving, those conflict management and communication skills, and then you finding examples that align with what the role is. So as I mentioned, just the STAR answers, employers are focusing on your behavior-based questions. They want to know, what have you done in the past, and how will that tie into my job, and what will Jennifer do at Electrolux based on her prior experience. So they're looking for me to understand that, and it's really important for you to be able to prepare for those answers. So I also told students that, like, get a sheet of paper and put down problem solving, leadership, conflict management, and then have an example that you wanted to share for each example of like what something may come up. And then it was really important for them to tie that example to the role if they can. That can definitely be a little bit more challenging as a college student, but definitely lean in on your leadership opportunities. If you volunteer, if you have an on-campus job or a job outside of school, those are all important examples that you can pull from and use in your answers. And I definitely think you can find stuff that you had a problem with teamwork. Maybe it was a class group project, or customer service. If you've been a waitress or a waiter, how did you solve for that customer experience? And And then also, if there's any kind of technical questions that they ask, definitely pull from what you're learning in the classroom. I think some students feel like, oh, I don't have enough experience, but the reality is you really do. You're really learning the latest and greatest. And companies want to see what you've learned, but they'll also teach you how to do it their way as well. So we want to make sure we can bring you on to Electrolux, and you'll be a great team player. You'll have strong communication skills, but we'll teach you the Electrolux way of doing things once you're on board. All right, and the last part is really just following up with the person that you interviewed with. And I would say probably 8 out of 10 times that we talk to candidates, they don't do this part. And this can really set you apart from other candidates. And I've heard stories from hiring managers that have said that they gave the position to that person that wrote them the thank you note. And the thank you note is key. It really can be that differentiator that gets you the job. So from the thank you note perspective, definitely personalize the note. Ask for the person's email address before you end the call or the video chat, so you can follow up with them, or even asking the recruiter if the recruiter set up the phone screen or video screen for them, so you can write them an email directly to them. And then draw from the conversation. So from the conversation, was there a nugget of information that they talked about the business that really got you excited about it? What else did they talk about in the role that really interests you, and you have that experience or you have that commitment or passion for it? And that's why it makes you a strong candidate for the position. This is another opportunity for you to really sell yourself. And so it's really important that you kind of leave that lasting impression on why they should choose you for this position. And as I said, many people don't do this part. So if you can craft a well-written thank you note, I think it will be a game changer for you. All right. So those are my tips. I wanted to kind of keep it high level, open it up for discussions, and also if there's any questions. I also wanted you to feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I think it's really important to network, mostly in this uncertain time of just kind of staying in touch with people that you come across that have those connections to internships or full-time jobs. So please find me on LinkedIn and say, hey, I was in your workshop. I'd be more than happy to help you out in terms of finding opportunities either with Electrolux or even opportunities that are elsewhere. So please do that. Jay, are there any questions?
There aren't any in the chat yet, but I was wanted to go ahead and advertise that to our attendees. If you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat for Jennifer, and we'll go from there. Robin did make a comment about nice to know how far you can stand out just by writing a follow-up. That's great to know.
Perfect. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I was looking at the chat. Yeah, you definitely can. And I think it's because, and it can also be for multiple reasons. You could have two really, really strong candidates, but if the candidate that shows the hiring manager that they want this job, that this is the reasons why, you're definitely going to get it, I think, just because they want somebody who wants to be there, who wants to be excited. So, so definitely finding the time to follow up is key.
Do you have any questions about virtual interviewing, anything that we can answer for our attendees?
Yeah, and if I went through something too fast, I didn't want to go dive in too deep with STAR if you guys have already done it, because I do know your career service office does an amazing job with the workshops, the information sessions, just career coaches. Mm-hmm. So if you need more examples of that or questions about it, I'd be more than happy to help.
Sure. I've got a question here from Iman. I apologize if I'm butchering your name there, but it's a really good one. Sometimes it's hard to get an interview. What advice would you give someone that doesn't have much real world experience on getting an interview?
No, that's a great question. I think just doing what you're doing right now, like attending the workshops, definitely get to know your career coaches, because we as employers definitely reach out to the schools and ask them for advice on how to get engaged with the student population. And so if you're building that relationship with a career coach or with a faculty member, then they're definitely going to recommend you for a position, I think. Mostly if you're really engaged and doing a good job. I don't know what year you are, but if you have an opportunity to get involved on student groups, that is an excellent way to kind of showcase the well-roundedness of an individual. So we understand as college students, you're not going to have a lot of experience, and that's okay. Um, we're not looking for the college student necessarily that's got lots of interns and has worked and has done all this. Yes, that's awesome. We want to see that on a resume, but we also know not everybody's in the same opportunity. So if you can get involved or volunteer, be that well-rounded individual, that experience can help you get that first internship. Um, the hiring managers that I work with for our interns, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for students who are eager to learn, that will help bring fresh ideas to the table. So I think if you can have a really polished resume that looks really great, again, shout out to your career services team to help you get there. That will help get you to that next step. So I would say networking, making sure you're getting involved just so you can start building up your whole portfolio of what type of person you are, and then just showing your eagerness. So again, using that network to reach out, do an informational interview with somebody, ask them for coffee or a virtual conversation. People are definitely willing to help college students out.
Jennifer, I had a question from Brooke that said, how do you handle disruption of sound or visual that might happen that were inadvertent during a virtual interview?
Yes. Oh, that's a great question. I feel like you always kind of need a plan B. And sometimes it's just rescheduling the interview if it's not working, if the connection's bad. I know one of our hiring managers, he asked the candidate because we were running into issues with our Blue Jeans account being broken up, and he asked the candidate if they could do a FaceTime instead of through the Blue Jeans. So I think as long as you're willing to kind of be agile and be flexible, then they will be too, because they want to make sure you're having a good experience and being able to have a conversation with them.
Jennifer, Robin asked a good question. What if you mess up during an interview? How do you regroup? And have you seen somebody do this and do it well? Can you provide an example?
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like I have the kind heart since I feel like I'll always have a taste of university life of working with students. So I think hiring managers are really good now too, where they understand you're nervous. They understand that it's just a nerve-wracking thing to go through an interview, be put on the spot, have to brag about yourself, remember all these things you've done. And so sometimes if you just need to take a break and just take a breather, I think just saying that is okay and owning it. Um, I think it's hiring managers will understand and actually respect you for it, for just kind of taking a pause and a regroup, just because they understand everybody's gone through it. Most likely they have too. So I think if you can just kind of own it, go, hey, can you give me a minute? I'm a little nervous, and then kind of take a break. If you can go step out, get some water, or just a pause, they'll be good. So I think if you just kind of own it, it'll be all right.
Jennifer, Lori had a good question in terms of follow up. How do you know when it's time to let go of an opportunity if you followed up a few times and haven't heard back? And I'll dovetail onto that too. We tell students, like, if they'll say they'll let you know inside of a week, the week passes, you can follow up again at least every couple of days till you hear something. But what's your advice on that? So two questions.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I feel like I run into this issue just because your inbox is getting flooded, and you are definitely working with different hiring managers, different open requisitions that we call for all our jobs that are open. And sometimes you don't mean to forget to follow up. It just happens. It falls off the radar. So if you're not hearing back, I have a feeling that might not be a good sign in terms of getting the job, just because they will follow up with a person that is of interest. But that's not to say something didn't happen. A lot of stuff happens behind the scenes that the recruiters just not in charge of. And I've seen a lot of that now that I sit with the recruiters, that jobs get put on hold or the hiring manager went on vacation during the interview process and didn't let anybody know. So if you haven't heard back, I definitely agree with Jay's. Like, give them a week to follow up. Um, and then if you haven't heard back, definitely follow up. But I would also follow up with details of what you are reaching out for, just because the recruiter is probably dealing with a lot of different jobs. So making sure you're specific to what job or internship that you applied to and talked about. That way it registers with the recruiter right away and they don't have to do too much digging. And it hopefully is an easy response back to you. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Yes, that job was put on hold. Or I've been waiting for X, Y, and Z to happen. So I think it kind of depends in terms of what's going on for the recruiter. But I think if you follow up a few times and never hear back, unfortunately, that just happens. And I don't think recruiters like for it to happen. It just does with this day and age of email and lots going on. But it's probably not you. It's probably really the company.
Jennifer, Stephanie, and Brooke had similar questions about students that don't have internet at home. So doing virtual interviews can be a challenge. Any
Yeah.
insight for those that don't have stable internet or no available internet at home? And then Brooke's follow up to that was there are a number of students who use things like Chromebooks or iPads and things like that as their main computer. And sometimes some of the software doesn't work as well with those. So suggestions on how to go about overcoming those technical obstacles, especially nowadays when you can't go to the university. Like we would tell people to come to the office, we can set them up. We're not there to do that.
That's a great question. And Stephanie, if I can like kind of look into that, because I really don't know the answer, because that's what I was going to say too, Jay. Like, yeah, can you go on campus or, but if your Wi-Fi or internet is spotty, that definitely makes it challenging. Let me look into that. I can see what I can find. Jay, do you think NACE would have anything on that?
Probably not. Not really. I mean, it's all going to be so localized, that kind of
Okay.
device. Yeah. So, what about if a student is, let's say you're working with somebody, Jennifer, and you say, okay, so you're going to get on Blue Jeans and do this, and they say, well, okay, I tested that link on my Chromebook, but it doesn't really work for me. There's something wrong with it. What kind of things would you recommend that student then do?
I think then the next option is really just to be able to do a phone interview and think that's okay, just because that's a lot of people are comfortable with that. They are familiar with it. I think actually the virtual video conferencing makes people nervous. I feel like that will change after this, where people are definitely more comfortable popping up their videos and doing a virtual call now. But I think if you didn't have the access to be able to do a video conference or video interview, then definitely just a phone call, because definitely either you did a virtual interview or a phone call, they definitely want to bring you on site eventually. And so they want you to get a tour of it. They want you to be part of the team. So I wouldn't be concerned that it would disqualify you for anything. I think maybe it's just going back to the old fashioned way and doing a phone interview first.
I'm glad you said that. That's what I would recommend to our students too. If you have some sort of technical difficulty, just make sure
Mm-hmm.
there's a phone number you can call into. There's even on these that we do in the career meetups, there's usually a phone number you can dial into and at least participate that way and just communicate with the interviewer. Any more questions from our students or any of the other staff that are attending today? Okay, well, I want to say again, thank you, Jennifer, for sharing time with us and sharing your insights. If you will, tell folks again how they can follow you and also follow what Electrolux has.
Yes. So yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn. I feel like on there a lot. So just kind of reach out and tell me that you were in on this call. That would be great. And then also for our internships and co-ops and positions that we have available, we are kind of assessing everything right now, as a lot of companies are doing. But I think we had our call with our VP of HR this morning, and that's what he mentioned. He's like, I think we'll see this dip and kind of holding on what we do with positions, but everything will kind of ramp back up. And since UNCC is only 3 miles from our local headquarters, so we're off of Mallard Creek Church Road, And so we're not far from UNCC. We love partnering with UNCC. So just if you see anything on the careers page that interests you, please let me know. As I said, I sit with all the recruiters. And so be more than happy to, if you're looking for that full-time job, pass it on to a recruiter, or if you're looking for an internship in co-op, I can definitely help with that part of it. We are kind of like on a hiring freeze right now, so we're just trying to figure out how to move forward, but I'm hoping that by end of May, early June, that things will be kind of back to normal in that way. But we typically have internships with finance, risk management, supply chain, purchasing, R&D with our electrical and mechanical engineer students, also with systems engineering. So we definitely have the full gamut of different opportunities for students.
Well, thank you again so much for everyone for attending, and thank you again, Jennifer, for providing such great insight.
You're welcome. I hope it was helpful. And yeah, like I said, feel free to reach out. I'd love to continue the conversation if you have any questions.